Welcome to the Giving Voice to Mental Health podcast, brought to you by Recovery.com, where real people share real stories of resilience and healing. I'm Terry McGuire.
And I'm Caroline Beidler. Mental health challenges impact so many of us, but together, when we share our stories, we can inspire hope. So take a deep breath, settle in, and listen as Johnny gives voice to mental health.
What are you hoping someone will learn from hearing the part of your story you're going to be sharing today?
I'm hoping that someone can learn to not give up, and that even in times that feels like there's no hope and no light at the end of the tunnel, like things can get better, and to maybe, get a spark of hope from hearing this and to start them on their recovery journey or help them continue on it.
And what do you consider yourself to be recovering from?
I would say suicidal ideation primarily, but also a lot of negative coping mechanisms to deal with that pain, like drug use and, intense alcohol and stuff like that.
Tell me a bit about that stage of your life where you were having those feelings and using those coping mechanisms.
Yeah, so I'd say growing up, my whole life, I was a pretty anxious kid. Started seeing a therapist when my parents made me when I was probably in elementary or middle school, and never really gained much from it because I didn't really want to be going. I guess the depression really started once I got around high school time, just feeling really just not motivated and hopeless with life. And I would say college is when it really got the worst. I'd say the rock bottom of laying in bed all day, just really, really depressed, not going to class. It's a miracle I passed that semester. Just going to work and coming back home and using drugs and alcohol, blacking out, just because I didn't want to deal with the pain I was feeling, and I didn't really want to talk to anyone about it either.
So you considered the mental health aspects of it, the depression and the suicidal ideation, to be sort of the cause? Is that the word you would use for the drug use?
Yeah, I was really just not enjoying just being alive. Every day was painful. I remember writing all these nasty messages to myself on was supposed to be my school calendar, taking the marker and just writing all these things just about ending my life and about my life being pointless and hating myself. I've always struggled with, self-hatred. And I would say that it just kind of came to this point where it was literally I was just doing research on suicide and death. I even wrote a suicide note. So when I was, drunk or on drugs or whatever, I was pretending like everything was happy and I was great, and none of my friends had any clue. And even when I went to recovery and I came back, a lot of people still don't even know that I went to recovery, but I told some people and they were just shocked because I would use, all the substances to pretend like everything was okay.
And what were the substances that you were?
So yeah, it would really be drinking and doing some coke. I did ketamine a few times as well, sometimes weed, and just trying to cope with the pain and having a really quote unquote fun night, pain-free night, and then not really remembering it the next day, feeling horrible the next day, and then having to play detective of, oh my God, what did I say? What did I do? People telling me things, seeing videos I took of myself on my phone, all these things. And it was really just an awful cycle. But that was the only time where I really felt, happy, or at least quote unquote enjoying life or anything like that.
So when did the drug use go from making you feel happy to feeling problematic?
I don't think there's any healthy way to do drugs, but it definitely I guess the mindset changed from the healthier, oh, let's party kind of way to let me just escape for a little bit. I need to do this. Looking forward to it. Even once I was already really drunk, just, drinking more and more.
What was the turning point or the change in your thoughts that made you think, I need to get help?
I was living in my fraternity house and there was a party going on downstairs, and everybody's downstairs in this party having this great time. And here I am, intoxicated or whatever, and I was on the phone with my parents just telling them that I wanted to kill myself and that I planned on killing myself. And they were like, you need to get help. I guess the whole journey towards recovery started was after that phone call, because I went to sleep that night and I woke up the next day and my parents had actually drove 4 hours to school because they were really, really worried about me. And then we started that conversation. I had come to a point where I was thinking everybody in my life would be able to get over me killing myself, I guess. But I was just struggling with, feeling like my mom couldn't get over it. And then seeing her the next day kind of cemented that, I would not want to leave her broken like that.
I'm really sorry I had all those thoughts, because I know what they're like and
Thanks.
they're brutal. So the process of going from, I think I need to get some help, to actually choosing a place at which to get that help. What did you do? Is it going online, Googling it? I mean,
Yeah. So I guess the plan was kind of like this, at least in my head. I was like, okay, I'm going to give recovery a shot. If I can fix my IBS and fix my depression and suicidality, then great. And if not, I can just take my life afterwards. So I kind of just started with just, looking online, because like I said, I was very private about this whole thing. And that was when I found like, Recovery.com was just looking online, and it was like a good tool to be able to find, a place to go and try to get better.
so before you found that site, what was the process like when it was every single thing that's on the internet?
Yeah. So I would say that there were times before when I was in the really bad depression that I was trying to look online, and it just was very overwhelming. And I felt like I just had no clue where to even start. And it made me feel like there actually, was just some hope, I guess, because this word recovery, it's just at the time, it doesn't seem possible. And seeing this whole website dedicated to it with a million different places listed, but then it was like not overwhelming because everything was kind of broken down into different categories. So I was able to break it down pretty quickly to find a place that would work for me. And they just had all the information and reviews and everything like that all in one place. So like it felt like, okay, like let me look at this place. Oh, this one's not a good fit. And then like there's another good option right there. It really made everything feel, I guess, like mainstream and, not like I'm just going on the dark corners of the web. Like everything seems legit. This place can actually, help me. And I would say it gave me definitely just some direction and some hope. And then once I was able to, tell my father about it and stuff like that, he was able to look at it to find a good place. And his friend's kid had gone to this one place, and Sabina Recovery, where I ended up going, and we were able to see it on there and see what was going on and everything like that. And yeah, I would say it was just a great tool in kind of giving me a direction on where to go.
You mentioned location. What were some of the other things? Were you specifically looking for cocaine, alcohol?
I don't think that my drug use was enough to go to a place specifically for drugs, because I was also dealing with a lot of other things. I was doing some, also some bad gambling, just dealing with it. So it was a mix of drugs, some gambling, some just bad depression and anxiety. So I was looking more for an all-in-one recovery place that can deal with some, past traumas, deal with depression, deal with anxiety. So that's why I felt like it was helpful to be able to see, okay, what does this place treat? Am I going to be the black sheep there, or am I going to fit in and be a good fit for that?
For someone who's never been in treatment, what was it like? What did you learn? How has it helped you manage and be healthier today?
Yeah. So I was really, really, really nervous before going, because I had definitely some hope, but I really just did not know, what is this going to be like? So luckily I was able to have a phone conversation with that family friend that had gone, and that definitely helped calm my nerves a little more. So that's part of actually why I wanted to go on this podcast, was because I felt like having that conversation with him was really helpful, of someone that had been there and gone through it, but not everybody has that opportunity. So that's why I think it's really great to come on here and just share my story, because hopefully it can help, ease someone's nerves and help them with their journey a bit. Getting there, I just felt a little bit like I was in a movie. Like it was just like, didn't feel like real. Like I was like, what is going on here? Like I felt like it's something wrong with me, seeing all these people that I didn't know. And it definitely took a few days to like adjust to the recovery schedule and stuff. But I would say maybe it took me like 2 weeks to really get into the whole flow of things and start finally working on those deeper issues and stuff like that, because I hadn't opened up in so long. So it took time to open up.
How long were you there?
It was a 35-day program.
What were you most nervous of when you were thinking about going but hadn't yet decided to?
I guess a couple things was, first of all, I didn't want to like be around a bunch of people that I knew and stuff like that, because I was keeping it very private. So that's why I kind of wanted to do a place that was further away. And I was nervous about it not working, that it was just going to feel like, a complete waste of time. I was going to just hate every second there, and, and I was just going to feel alone. And I had been feeling alone for so long. And I felt like, what if I'm in this place where everyone else is getting better around me and I'm just not, I'd say stuff like that.
And so was it like that or was it different?
Definitely was not like that the first few days. They gave me a roommate that was only a couple years older than me, and that was really helpful. So I remember the first few days just really kind of like clinging to him and hanging out with him. And I wasn't actually opening up or doing anything. I was just like kind of putting on that mask that I did, like cracking jokes and stuff like that. And he finished after a week and a half of us sharing the room. And I remember right when he left, I broke down because that had been like my guy throughout the whole time. And it kind of was making it feel more like summer camp. I was able to suppress, but now I was like, okay, it's time to really get to work on things and have those difficult conversations and those difficult feelings and just finally putting myself out there and saying, okay, these are people that are different ages than me. They're from around the country, different problems. But it made me just feel not alone, that everybody was very, very kind to everyone else. So I would say that a great thing there about this is the community of people that was there. That's how actually I got involved in AA. Was they at Recovery there, they only had a once a week AA meeting, but there were a lot of people there that were alcoholics. So they were doing a resident run AA group every single night. And so on the first night I was there, someone just told me about it. I was like, hey, it's my first night. I'm trying to just meet people. Let me just go. And I really, really loved just the support and being able to realize how I was using the alcohol and stuff like that. So I would say that the residents bringing that upon themselves to do and inviting me into it, inviting anyone into it, it created a good social group for me for sure. Feeling like I wasn't alone and, just also being able to talk with the other residents without any of the staff present. And, was definitely a different vibe also. So I liked being able to kind of have both.
Let's talk for a second about community and not being alone, because both depression and drug use can really isolate us. And the more isolated we are, the more we sort of feed into the thoughts and believe everything we're telling ourselves. And as you said, those are some pretty hateful things. How did hearing that other people who, had you passed them on the street, you wouldn't have suspected anything, just as they wouldn't with you, to see that they were in similar situations? How did that matter? How did that help?
It was really eye-opening to me. The whole don't judge a book by its cover thing really, really stuck with me and has to this day, just seeing what I would see as, successful, happy people opening up and sharing their stories and stuff. And there were other residents there who had trauma because they had a family member take their own life. And that was really eye-opening for me as well, because I was just imagining, my own mom there, a few years later and stuff like that. So I would say that it really just showed me that human beings, we're complicated. And just because you think someone is okay doesn't mean they are. But also just because someone has trauma and has gone through hard things doesn't mean that they're not a really strong person, doesn't mean that they can't overcome it, doesn't mean that they can't help you, that you can't help them, that you can't create a friendship with them. And I still have them in a group chat with people we were doing for a bunch of months afterwards. We were still doing the AA talking things. We're still in touch. I've learned a lot from going to AA for sure, but I don't have that sickness that they call alcoholism. I can have one drink with a friend now and stop. And it's just because I guess the place I am in my life, I'm just doing it, in a happy social kind of way. I'm not in this miserable place where I need to escape.
So shifting from the drinking and the drugs to your mental health, how did treatment help you better manage your mental health?
Yeah. So first it kind of came with me looking back at my life and what led me to that point. I grew up pretty religious and didn't really fit into that community. So I had a lot of trauma from that, with being the black sheep in my family, being the black sheep in my school, being the black sheep in my community, not fitting in my whole life. So part of it was just going back and taking all these traumatic moments and working with the therapist to get into those moments and deal with them and stuff like that. So it was about opening up to the past for sure, and just learning the tools to cope with the things I was feeling. That's okay to talk about them. And it also showed me that I need to create a purpose in my life. So it's about finding things that make your life worth living, relationships with people, whether it's being outside, whether it's sports, whatever it is. So finding things that I could find joy in again, and things that make me happy, and trying to also create a plan. That's something that I really liked that they did there, was the post-recovery plan. Like, what's life going to be like when you get back to the real world? What are you going to do? What therapists are you going to go see? Because that can also be really overwhelming and daunting. So I'd say it was just like a mix of everything, dealing with the past, dealing with the present, and then preparing for the future.
Terry, I really connected with Johnny's story. I loved when he talked about finding purpose.
Yes.
And having purpose and sitting down with you and sharing his story. It was such a bold, I think, courageous thing that we can do when we talk about our recovery stories. And what was so moving to me when he first decided to get into treatment, it was because of hearing someone else's story.
Yeah.
It was because someone told him their story of accessing treatment and finding recovery and what that looked like for them that motivated him to find the help that he needs. And he found that help through Recovery.com, which is just amazing.
And it's a great cycle, right? Because he heard a story, felt, I don't know if the word is right, empowered to get treatment, to get help for himself. And then hopefully through his story, some other people will see the light that can be so dim at the end of such a long tunnel.
Absolutely. And I think, for Johnny to share his story specifically about just the different types of struggles that he had and kind of coming to a place where he understood that a lot of his substance use, while not his kind of primary thing he was been working on, but that it was a symptom of something else. And then he needed to find out what that something else was. And so through a process of discovery and accessing treatment through Recovery.com, he was able to learn that about himself. And I think that was so moving. The other thing I wanted to share too about Johnny's story is that for me, it shows how much agency and choice we have in our, not just recovery stories, but our life stories. And that we can choose at different points along the way to access what we need. And I just love for Johnny that his motivation for doing that was someone else's story.
And shout out to his parents for having an open line of communication that when he was really struggling and deeply suicidal, he was able to say that to them. They jumped in their car and that became the beginning of what is his recovery journey.
And that's so important. You bring up a great point where family support and family engagement in this process is so key. And when we have family, whether that's biological family or chosen family, when we have friends, family supports that care about us and that show up for us, it just makes all the difference. And so, I loved when Johnny talked about seeing his mom and that they just showed up the next day, after he had talked to them about how he was feeling. It was so beautiful. And it just was such a great reminder that we need to show up for the folks that we care about. So maybe someone listening or watching today has someone in their life that might be struggling. I would encourage that person to show up, make a phone call, connect, because you never know where that connection or support could lead. And for Johnny, it led to getting the help that he needed and ultimately to his recovery.
I think that it's important to get to a point where we are creating and part of a life that we find worth living for ourselves, not for someone else. But if not wanting to hurt his mom, and hurt is a very subtle word for what the impact would likely be, if that kept him going long enough to get into recovery and to gain all the tools that he gained to stay on a path of life, then it's a great thing and a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. And, if like you said, if our love and our connection with our family, our friends keeps us on the journey longer, great. Whatever it takes to get us to that next step. And I'm so glad for Johnny. And I'm so just encouraged by his story.
And to all the people listening who are feeling that they don't have that they don't have close family, that they don't have people who would really care if they were here or not. There are so many places to find some sense of community. And that can be in a 12-step group. That can be in an online community. That can be in peer support groups. There are just so many options. So if you're finding yourself thinking, I don't have that, nobody cares, nobody loves me, first of all, symptom of depression, to believe that. But also, lots of us are alone. And so finding connections somewhere, and it's so hard to do when you're in that space, but there are options out there.
There's a saying in the addiction recovery space that says, the phone is really heavy. So when we're struggling, the phone is so heavy, kind of throw back to like when we had phones that you actually picked up, and dialed. But reaching out when we're struggling can be really challenging, but that's the moment when we should be reaching out and connecting. And like you said, we might feel alone. We might physically be alone.
Right.
We might not have that supportive family, but there are people out there. There is support available. I would just encourage listeners or watchers to remember that and remember that there is that hope available.
And since the phone is so heavy and we can be so in our own thoughts, it's really important for people outside when you notice someone in your life changing, just not themselves. You don't have to know the list of symptoms for different mental health diagnoses, but you know when someone's not doing well. And check in. When you ask how you're doing and they say, fine, ask again. Say, really? I'm willing to talk to you. I'm willing to listen. More importantly, listen to you. And that can make a world of difference to someone who believes no one cares.
That's so true. And there are so many people that care and so many resources. And Recovery.com is an excellent place to find not just that treatment help, but support, all types of different kinds of support. So go to Recovery.com and check out the resources that are available there too.
And we'll be back next week.